Thank you all for joining me here today. My name is Andrew Hayes. I'm a school board member here in Lakeside, and I'm joined today by a school board member from Santee, Tracy Till, a school board member from Cajon Valley, Anthony Carnevale, and a school board member from Literacy First Charter Schools, Priscilla Schreiber. And also parent activists behind me who are very concerned about this bill, AB 495. So what is AB 495? It's been called the Family Preparedness Act of 2025. That is a misnomer, to be very clear. This bill has been marketed as a bill that protects immigrant children from deportation in an event their parent is deported. Then they can have a person show up for them. That is, in my view, a misnomer. This bill expands the definitions of non-relative guardianship, and all that it requires is a caregiver authorization affidavit to be presented to a school official, and the student has to be released. This person does not have to be a parent, the form does not have to be notarized, and they can have a familial relationship, which could be as simple as somebody they met yesterday on the sidewalk. There is no notarization and parents don't have to approve. It's wrong. And the loopholes in this bill could create huge ramifications, whether it's human trafficking. I mean, if there's a person who wants to traffic a human, guess what? It's pretty easy to say, oh, we're just going to take this form in and the school's going to release them because we can sign this form. And the parents don't have to approve. This is scary, and it's a slap in the face to parents as schools are starting in East County and across our county. They trust that schools are going to protect their kids, and just allowing a form for them to take the child, that's wrong. That's not okay. It's not acceptable. And to use it under the guise of immigration is wrong too, because guess who the traffickers and the sex predators and the kidnappers are going to pursue first? It's going to be the immigrant children. They are the most at risk. So this bill hurts immigrant children. So it's grandstanding on a political scale at our children's expense and at our parents' expense and the safety of our kids' expense, and it's wrong, and it needs to stop. So we're here today saying, we're not going to stand for this. We're going to push back. There's a rally in Sacramento today opposing this. There's a rally at 1 o'clock today at the Santee Unified School District office. But we, as school board members, have to stand and create a plan to defend our kids and our parents' rights. And so what I'm announcing today is that I'm joining other school districts and saying we're not going to do this. We're going to create a parallel safety program so that our kids in school and our parents know that if somebody shows up with that authorization form, we're going to ask for verification of who that person is. We already have safeguards in place. So one of the arguments is, oh, safeguards. We have safeguards. We have a pre-approved list of people that the parents can allow us to release these students to. Guess what? If someone brings in the affidavit, we're going to check our list. We're not just going to follow that rule, because the bottom line is if it's not a person on the list, we're not releasing the kid. We're not going to do that. This is ridiculous. This is putting our kids at risk, and our parents who work really hard every day don't deserve to worry about their kid being in our schools. It's our job to keep their kids safe. It's our job to defend them, and it's our job to advocate for them when Sacramento is clearly focused on grandstanding in the wrong way. So we're all here today saying this is not okay. We're going to fight back on this bill, and we're going to make sure that local school districts put in safety plans that are going to circumvent this horrible piece of legislation. So that's what we're here to support today, and I'm happy to take questions on the bill or any of our plans if you have them. Yes, ma'am.
Earlier you mentioned kind of it being notarized. Are there like limitations or amendments to the bill that you would support that would kind of still lead to the legislative intent of the bill?
Well, if the Sacramento leadership decides to put language in that says this is specifically for immigrant students, I think that would solve a lot of this problem. But guess what? That's not what they're doing. They're using it as a tool to grandstand and run for other offices. I'm sorry, people are done with that, and at the end of the day, we really need to protect kids. And by the way, immigrant children are some of the most vulnerable kids. Why would we not want to protect them? Why would we not want to have a checklist? Because when they're in our schools, they're safe. When we're releasing them to someone we don't know who they are, they're not safe. That's wrong. And by the way, all kids deserve to be protected. So not just with immigration status, everybody. Any other questions?
Yes. You know, in Washington, although it is rather guarded, the senators and congressmen have some secrecy if they've been convicted of sex crimes or under investigation for sex crimes. Do the assemblymen, women, and the senators up in Sacramento have that secrecy if they've been convicted of a sex crime or under investigation of sex crime, any kind of sex crime? Do they have that same quote, privilege that the representatives in Washington has?
Not that I've ever heard of.
Okay, thank you.
What would you suggest to address concerns over children whose parents might be detained while they're waiting to pick them up as a result of this?
I would suggest that all parents submit a list of pre-approved people to the school district right now, today, because I'm going to use that list. That's what we're going to use to verify if that person who wants to bring in a form, if that person's name's on the pre-approved list, so be it. That's who because the parents approve that list. If they're not on the list, we're not releasing the kids. It's that simple. It is not going to happen. And to me, that's our job and our duty to protect our kids. And so we have to make sure that we do this parallel because, you know what, if the state passes it, we're going to do this before the state passes it because we want to make sure kids are safe today. Because the fact is, parents are concerned about this, and this bill truly is tone deaf. It is a complete slap in the face as school districts start. Yesterday, Lakeside School District started schools. We started school yesterday. This bill, I've heard from so many members in our community, they are so concerned about it because at the end of the day, guess what? What if the bill passes and then some random person shows up and tries to take their kid with a form? And by the way, the form doesn't just give guardianship rights. It allows for them to make medical decisions, housing decisions. That's insane. I mean, that kind of power and control that we just have to let them go because they bring the affidavit, that's misguided at best. So I think we really have to be thoughtful. So parents right now should submit a list of pre-approved folks to their schools so that they know that those are the people, whether it's grandparents, sister, brother, uncle, aunt, whoever, we need to make sure that it's vetted by the parent. And that's what I'm going to support is that list of people.
I once knew a family that it was just them and their kids in the unfortunate event, well, grown now today, but what if in this particular instance they had no other, it's just the parents, and these kids are still 10 years old, for example.
Yep.
What then? What's the school going to do then? Whether they have, because the children are still your responsibility. By the time that they reach school and go home, they're still your responsibility.
Yep.
What do you do?
Here's what I would argue for those scenarios. If you have a parent that maybe there's a student that doesn't have anybody, maybe it's just their parents. I advise those parents in those scenarios, let's be proactive. Go to your church. Maybe it's your pastor. Maybe it's a local. Maybe it's a neighbor. Maybe it's someone who you trust that in the event that you weren't able to be there, that your child will be taken care of. Provide that list to the schools so that we can do our job and make sure that your kids are safe at school. Because this bill right now is not doing that. It opens the door to Pandora's box. It's anything goes with this affidavit. And to me, that's just wrong. And it's not helpful. It doesn't solve the problem.
What would you tell state leaders who introduced this bill and wrote it and thought they suggested, this would be something that even parents or, school would be in favor of?
Well, I would argue that there are many people who aren't in favor of this, and I think practically speaking, there's a lot of holes. I mean, when you look at an operational standpoint from a school district administering these things, Sacramento creates so many rules on local schools that we have to implement. But what this does, it creates a loophole. We have existing safeguards to make sure we don't release kids to the wrong people. And so this bill, again, it's political grandstanding. It's trying to take shots at immigration policy and boost the assembly member who introduced this bill's profile, but it has no real policy solution whatsoever. It creates this problem where, by the way, it puts immigrant children at more risk. That's what it does, because in those cases where there may only be a parent or maybe a grandparent here, in many cases they're immigrant families. In many cases they're families in poverty. You're putting some of the most at-risk people at risk in this bill of being trafficked, kidnapped. I mean, who knows what? And it's our job as school districts to say we're going to defend all of our kids. Every single one of them is in our care, and the parents entrust them to our care. And so that's why I say provide the list of approved people, because then we can protect the kids. And we're going to continue to do that. I know that all these folks behind me support that, and in my district, we're going to be implementing policy. Before this bill gets out of committee, we're going to make sure that we have a safety policy in place that supports parents' rights, because this is a complete slap in the face. And it's really offensive. And not only is it offensive, it's embarrassing. The person who did this in Sacramento should be ashamed of themselves.
What is the current process if a child is kind of left in custody of the school district after an event and the school district does not have a list of approved parents or guardians to kind of release the child to?
Yep, great question. So there's a numerous stage process here. We do a whole vetting, so we will go and say, okay, who's on that list, right? Okay, if there's no list, which usually parents will provide us with a list. But in the event that there is no list, in the event that there is no, next of kin, if you will, then we start bringing in child welfare services. We bring in all of those local government agencies to help provide that support for kids. And so there are pathways for our kids to find safe places. But again, not just releasing them to some random person on the sidewalk. I mean, that's what this bill would allow. I mean, and people say that's fanfare. It's not. Read the bill. And it really gives these vague criteria, these vague loopholes that do not fit what kind of the idea of protecting kids is. So there's a whole series of processes that schools already follow to keep kids safe in these scenarios. Changing it to say we're just going to protect immigrant kids, well, it's about all kids. We're supposed to take care of all kids in schools, not just one section of kids. And as I've contended, and I'll continue to contend, this bill actually hurts immigrant families more because it puts them at greater risk. Because they may not trust law enforcement. They may not trust certain people. But they also won't turn in forms. You're putting them at risk because some trafficker, some coyote, could come over, turn in a form to a school, and we have no recourse to say, no, you can't do that. So we're going to create that in our school districts because parents deserve to know when they drop their kids off at the corner that they're going to be safe for the day.
I have a question.
You have a question? Okay, Priscilla,
I do,
yes.
thank you. A couple of things. Do you ask the student when this person comes to pick them up, are you familiar with this person? Do you know this person?
By the affidavit, it's a bunch of legal language.
You can't ask questions.
You can ask, but if they present it, you let them go. And by the way, would school district staff do that? I hope not. I hope they realize that at the end of the day, schools are there to protect kids, and if they don't know them, they'd call the principal, they'd call somebody to help advocate. But at the end of the day, if there's no pre-approved list that we can check, that's not okay. So that's what I want our districts to do, is ask for that list, get that list, so that then we can provide that information to our staff so that our staff can keep our kids safe. And then, of course, if there's no other next of kin, there are other pathways we can follow that are already existing in law.
And also, do you think this is another effort to undermine and circumvent local control?
Yes, Sacramento is always trying to circumvent local control, and they want to take over on this stuff, but they don't know Lakeside. They're not elected in Lakeside. I am. They're not elected in Santee. Tracy is. They're not elected in El Cajon. Anthony is. So at the end of the day, it's our job to make sure that we do what our communities want. And I've heard from so many parents. I was in Albertsons over the weekend. What are you going to do about AB 495? What are you going to do about this? Well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to make sure that we have a process in place that will protect your kid. That's what we're going to do. And I believe that we have existing policy that does that, and we're going to implement new policy that's parallel so that if somebody presents this form, we have other paths to make sure that we release them, whether it's a verification of photo ID, all of those things we can do, and they're in our purview, and we will.
Cindy, you kind of talked about new plans, policies, maybe standing up virtual learning, transportation, in response to years of immigration enforcement. I'm curious, with the variety of districts represented here, what are those conversations like?
Well, the safest place for kids is in the classroom. San Diego Unified has made some great decisions about their kids' virtual learning. We're talking about a group of kids who are still struggling from the pandemic, and we're going to send them home to keep them safe. They're safer in our classrooms. They're absolutely safer in our classrooms. So at the end of the day, we have to be clear that these are the things that we're looking to do, is protect kids. I respect many of the leaders on San Diego Unified's board, but I think their approach on saying we're going to send kids home, that's where they're safest, that's wrong. That's not appropriate. School is the safest place for kids.
So then what are the plans, or are there any plans within your districts to address the years of immigration?
Well, from my view, the state has already done that. The state doesn't allow ICE on campuses. This is all fanfare, political fanfare. The state does not allow, it's already state law. SB 54, all this stuff exists. State law does not allow for ICE agents to come on campus. It's already existing law. So anything to create anything different, it's just to play into the political rhetoric of the time right now. And by the way, using kids as that is wrong. And I think that saying that, oh, this is all about that is wrong. Because at the end of the day, immigration has nothing to do with schools. We have to teach every kid. We can't ask immigration status, already barred in law. So again, this is just creating fanfare about politics to go after the president and his administration, when we should be focused on keeping kids in school so they can learn and grow academically, because our state scores suck, and we need to make sure that our kids do better, and then we need to have them in the classroom so that we can teach them. And they're safer there, by the way. Any other questions for us?
I'm looking at the text of the bill, and it says this section does not prohibit the governing board or body of a local education agency from establishing stronger standards and protections. So I guess I'm just kind of curious, like, what am I not understanding about, like, why a school district couldn't just keep doing with what they're doing?
Well, here's the question. So the question to that is, sure, we can create stronger safety standards in parallel with the bill. But what happens if there's a district that says, well, we followed the state policy, and then the state policy said, oh no, we're done, right? Or they brought us the affidavit, and then we get sued because we didn't follow the affidavit and it's state law. That's what's going to happen. And districts don't need to spend any more money on lawsuits. It's done. So. Okay.
Are you okay just doing the intro again that you
Sure. Yep.
that I missed?
Yep. Happy to.
Your opening statement.
Yep. We're all here today gathered to oppose AB 495, a bill in Sacramento that will kill parent rights, and it's a slap in the face and tone deaf to the fact that parents have a right to make sure their kids are safe in school. And what this bill does